All right, today we are diving into one of the most important tools for any project manager, the project schedule. But we're going to look at it from an angle you might not be expecting.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. A project starts, everyone's excited, but then, somewhere down the line, things start to slip. Deadlines get missed, the budget gets blown, and everybody's frustrated. So, what is really going on here? Why does this happen so often? It's really easy to point fingers at the schedule and say, oh, it was unrealistic. But honestly, a failing schedule is just a symptom of a much bigger issue. The real problem is way deeper. It's in the weak foundation. It's about all the critical work that should have happened before anyone even thought about putting a date on a calendar.
So let's just reframe this whole conversation. This isn't about making a prettier Gantt chart, no. This is about the strategic prep work that actually turns a simple list of dates into a real, achievable roadmap for success.
And that preparation? It has a name: Project Schedule Guidelines. And the most important word on this slide is before. See, these aren't things you do to manage a schedule that's already running. These are the absolutely essential steps you take to build a realistic one from the very beginning.
I want you to think about it like you're building a house. You wouldn't just show up and start putting up walls, would you? Of course not. You need a solid blueprint first. Well, these guidelines, they are that blueprint, and they rest on 6 foundational pillars. And here they are. You've got scope and priorities, managing time effectively, integrating your budget, getting real team commitment, controlling scope changes, and finally, transparency. If you can get these 6 pillars right, you're not just crossing your fingers and hoping for success. You are actively engineering it. So let's break them down. So pillars 1 and 5 are basically 2 sides of the same coin. It's all about mastering your scope. The whole idea is to figure out exactly what needs to get done, using something like a requirements breakdown structure, and then you lock it down. When you set those requirements crystal clear from day one, you build a fence around your project. That's what stops scope creep. All those little, can you just add this one thing requests that totally wreck your timeline? Okay, next up, time. And let's be real, your team's focus time is the most precious resource you have, period. That means you have to be ruthless about cutting out the waste. Think about all those pointless meetings or busy work that adds zero value. And just as important, you have to build an environment where people can actually get into a state of flow and work without being interrupted every 5 minutes. So what happens when your boss says, we need this done faster? Well, you've really got 2 main options. The smart way is to do tasks in parallel. That's called parallel processing. Or you can try what's known as crashing the project, which is just throwing more people at the problem. But I gotta warn you, crashing is a huge gamble. More often than not, it just adds chaos, drives up your costs, and can actually make the project take longer. Pillar number 3 is all about the money. Way too many projects treat the budget like it's this totally separate spreadsheet that someone else worries about. That is a massive mistake. Your budget needs to be woven directly into the fabric of your schedule. By tying costs to specific tasks and project phases, you get real-time control over your finances, instead of just a guess at the start and a nasty surprise at the end. Look, a schedule is just a piece of paper until your team actually commits to it. And you can't force that commitment. It has to be earned. How? By bringing them into the planning process from the start. When your team helps build the schedule, your estimates get way more accurate, everyone knows exactly what they're responsible for, and they feel a real sense of ownership over the project's success. Okay, I get it. That's a lot to juggle, right? You've got scope, time, money, people, all these moving parts. So how on earth do you keep everyone aligned and pulling in the same direction? The answer is actually surprisingly simple, but it is incredibly powerful. Radical transparency. And I'm not just talking about sending out an email update once in a while. No, this means making the schedule a living, breathing thing that's part of your team's daily life. Share every single version of it. Put it up on a giant whiteboard on the wall. Use your project management tools to link out to documents and add notes, so there's never any question about what a task actually means. All right, so now that we have our 6 foundational pillars locked in, we've built our strategic foundation, now and only now are we actually ready to go from these guidelines to a real timeline and draft that technical blueprint. And the heart and soul of that blueprint is something called the Work Breakdown Structure, or WBS.
Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a recipe for your project. It takes the big final goal and breaks it all the way down into tiny, manageable chunks that you can actually measure, and this is key, that you can estimate time and cost for.
And let me be perfectly clear, this part is non-negotiable. The quality of your estimates for time, cost, and resources is 100% tied to the quality of your WBS. If you're lazy here and make an incomplete WBS, you are guaranteeing your schedule is a work of fiction. A detailed one is the only way you'll get to something realistic.
So, once you have all your tasks laid out from the WBS, the next job is to find the most important sequence of work. This is what we call finding the critical path.
To put it simply, the critical path is the chain of tasks that have zero slack. What does that mean? It means there is no wiggle room, none. If a single task on this path gets delayed by even one day, the entire project's finish date gets pushed back by one day. It's a direct one-to-one link. And when you use tools like a network diagram, this critical path just jumps right out at you. See, while some other tasks might have a little bit of flexibility, the ones you see connected here, this chain, they are totally non-negotiable. This is the spine of your project. And as a manager, your number one job is to protect these tasks at all costs. So you've built your foundation, you've drafted the blueprint, you've found the critical path, you're ready to start, right? Hold on. Not quite. There is one last crucial step, getting formal acceptance. This is where you bring the whole team together, you present the final plan, and you get their explicit sign-off. This closes that commitment loop and makes sure everyone is on the exact same page before a single piece of work begins. When you actually follow this whole process, you totally change your role in the project. You stop being just a manager who tracks dates on a calendar. You become a strategic architect, intentionally designing a plan that is built for success.
And that, right there, is the biggest thing to take away from all this. A project schedule is not just a calendar, it's a strategic agreement. It's a promise that the whole team makes to each other, a promise that is built on a rock-solid foundation of good preparation, real commitment, and total transparency.
So, the next time you're starting a project, just ask yourself this. Are you just making another list of dates and deadlines? Or are you actually sitting down to architect a real blueprint for success?